Hello everyone, welcome to a little video analysis of my opinion of my favourite Yakuza games. I'm a big fan of the Yakuza series. I got into it fairly late. I think it was most common for people to jump into the series around Yakuza 3 because that was the first Yakuza game released on the PlayStation 3. I mean, there was 1 and 2 on the PlayStation 2, but for me personally, I came in at 3 and I played them in a really peculiar order. I think I played it 3, 4, 1... 5, 2, 0, Kiwami, the remake of the first one. Basically what I'm going to talk about is my personal opinion on my favourite to least favourite. Now I'm not saying best to worst, I'm saying the one I enjoyed the most to the one I enjoyed the least. Now at no ways because I didn't enjoy it makes it a bad game. Because my opinion appears to be quite controversial, as I am on Facebook, part of a Yakuza community, and I made a post stating the order in which I like the games, and it didn't go down particularly well, it's fair to say. I will tell you the order in which I like them. The game I enjoyed the most was Yakuza Zero, then it was the original Yakuza, and then it was Yakuza 3, 4, 5, and 2. Now at the time of recording this, I haven't played 6 because it hasn't come out in the UK, in the Western world. I know it's been out in Japan for a long time, but I don't speak Japanese, so I can't play it. And I'm quite content to just wait until it is released and then I'll play it then. Now I'm not including the Kiwami variants. Bear in mind that Kiwami 2 hasn't been released, Kiwami 1 has come out. And I have played it and I have completed it and I did enjoy it, but it's a remake. I mean, you can make of it what you will, but as far as I'm concerned, it's the original PlayStation 1 that started it all off, and that's the one I'll be judging it on. I'll go over in finer detail the reasons why I like them in the order I did. Starting with Yakuza Zero, I was going to have the games laid out next to me so I could pick them from there, but I'm in the process of moving to Japan actually, to be with my girlfriend. But I do have the guides, which I'm going to be using to sort of jog my memory. So I think Yakuza Zero being my favourite, I know this is one of the more recent ones that was made, but it felt more like a Yakuza story. You had the lieutenants, and Kiryu was just he wasn't even a lieutenant, he was just a grunt, and it shows him working his way up the ranks. I thought it was a bit strange that he had such a ding-dong with the Dojima family that he was supposed to be part of, and after he beat them all up and, you know, hung his boss out to dry and he lost all his power because of him, he still stayed and Dojima kept him around. I thought that was quite a peculiar ending. But also you can play as Goro Majima in this as well, and again, like, one thing I didn't like about that was because he's always been, like, in the other games, he's like this loose cannon crazy guy who's got respect for Kiryu, but at the same time he wants to beat the shit out of him, and he plays by his own rules. But he was far too normal, I think, is what I'm trying to find in Yakuza Zero. But it wasn't until right at the very end where he goes, Kazuma-chan or Kiryu-chan or whatever it is, that was the only sign that he had lost his marbles. I know it's supposed to be suggesting that all the events that he went through in Yakuza Zero was supposed to push him to this end, but they could have gradually had him getting a bit more crazier as the game went on, rather than just suddenly switch it on right at the end, which I didn't really like that. But overall, I thought this was probably the most solid game. It had the most coherent storyline of all of them. It wasn't too far-fetched, and it was fairly easy to follow. So that's Yakuza Zero. That's the one I enjoyed the most. The second one, Yakuza 1, the original, the one that started it all off. Now, I almost didn't finish this because obviously coming back to the game after the first one I played, Yakuza 3, the controls are horrendous. Now, I know what you're going to say. For the time, they were fine, and I'm sure they were, but I didn't play it at the time. I came back to it, so I had to downgrade to the controls. And I got to the part where you are in the Tojo family HQ and you've got to try and fight your way out. I couldn't do it. I just kept dying. Now, I ain't claiming that I'm very good at games, but I gave up. I gave up for about a month, and I think it wasn't until I bought Yakuza 4. It wasn't until I completed Yakuza 4 that I thought, right, now I'm really going to have to go back and complete Yakuza 1. And I persevered, and I persevered, and I persevered, and I did it. I finally did it. I beat it, and it was a good game. Again, it had a nice, coherent storyline. It wasn't too far-fetched. It had likeable characters, believable characters, and I thought it ended quite nicely. It sort of wrapped things up. Of course, along comes Yakuza 2, but yeah, Yakuza 1, that's probably my second favourite. My third favourite, again, doesn't seem to be a very common opinion, was Yakuza 3. Now, that may be because that's the first one I played, and it was my introduction to the series. I don't know, but it was good for what it was. Now, I understand that it was a pretty washed down version from what the Japanese got, but it was still, still good. It had a bit of a complex storyline, all these government agents fighting over hotel resorts and military bases. But the overall game was fun. It was a easy enough game to play. But yeah, I mean, it didn't really stand out in any particular way, but it was pretty solid for what it was. I remember one thing I really liked is because I'm not a Call of Duty fan or anything like that. I like a good story, and I like a game to take its time to make me invested in what it is I'm playing and the characters that I'm being introduced to. One thing that I really did like is at the beginning of the game, when you're in the orphanage, it introduces all the children to you, one at a time. It gives you a reason, it gives you little side missions. Now, a lot of people might think this is a load of old crap and it's boring and nobody wants to do it. But for me, being introduced to the kids slowly, one by one, made me care about them. It made me want to make sure that the orphanage didn't get destroyed or whatever, and it was nice. I liked the slow build up, and once it get going, boy did it get going. And it must have had an effect on me, because after completing it, must have been probably within maybe a week of completing it, that I went to a car boot sale or a flea market, or I don't know what you call them in your parts of the world, but in England we refer to them as car boot sales. Someone was selling Yakuza 4 for the PlayStation 3, and I think I got it for like £2, which brings us on to the next one, which Yakuza 4 is my next favourite after that. I got kind of mixed feelings about this one because it introduces you to 3 additional characters. You got Akiyama, who's my boy, a great character. I think he was really, really good. His motivations were good. How he was embedded into the story with the explosion at the top of Millennium Tower, and that's how he made his fortune back after losing it all. Yeah, but he was a great character. I thought he was really, really good, really charismatic. And Saejima, on the other hand, I know he is kind of like the pinnacle of this one. He's kind of like the main focus about him and his sister. But I wasn't sold on him as a character at all. I didn't think he was particularly interesting or engaging. I mean, my biggest gripe with Yakuza 4 is that Saejima escapes from prison after 26 years for the murder of 16, 18 people. I can't remember what it was. That's why he's in there, which is, he's a cold, hard killer Yakuza, and he did it. If you play the game, he didn't think about it. He went in there and he shot those people up. But it's not until later on in the game when you realise that actually he was shooting blanks or some bollocks like that, and it was the main sort of protagonist of the game who was the real person who killed them. Like, why? Like, his motivation for... Why didn't he just let Saejima kill all the people if he was just going to go and kill them anyway? I mean, it doesn't make any sense, and it makes Saejima a bit of a joke, really, because he's built up to be this, oh, you're the killer, you're this murderer, killed all these people, but he didn't actually do any of it, and he's been to prison for 26 years for nothing. It just didn't make any sense to me. Because in the game, Saejima goes in and he kills, in inverted commas, these people, leaves the restaurant, this all happens, and then the guy walks in straight after him and then shoots them all for real. Is this just me? But it doesn't make any sense. But anyway, the reason why it scores so low on my list is mainly because of that. And the other guy, the police guy, I can't even remember his name, but he was a throwaway character. I wasn't invested in him whatsoever. It was interesting how he sort of, him and Detective Date became bud. Yeah, he was uninteresting. Like, the fact that I can't even remember his name says it all, really. I'm just sort of trying to flick through the pages now, but the books are in Japanese, so I wouldn't be able to read it anyway, even if I did find them. The next one is Yakuza V. Now, I thought this was a pretty solid game. The reasons why it's second to last in my all-time favourites is because there was just so much filler in there, like all these mini games, like the hunting. I know you didn't have to do it, you could skip it all if you wanted to, but when you have to play as Haruka, by the way, I don't think Haruka's necessarily a bad character. I think she is the one who has the biggest journey in the entire series over anybody else, because you get her from a 5-6-year-old kid, and I think in Yakuza 6 she's what's supposed to be 20, 21, and she's a mother. So she has the biggest arc, and she's the one who's had all of this stuff happen to her. I mean, she gets kidnapped practically every single game. But anyway, I digress. But Haruka's story when you're doing the idol, now he's interesting, but it could have been told in cutscenes. The fact that you have to play as Haruka and do all these dancing mini games and stuff like that. I mean, I'm not saying I didn't like it, but it was just padding. It was just padding for the sake of padding. And it was the baseball guy, Shinada, I think's his name. He's just a baseball player. Oh, what's that guy's name? The guy who takes over the Tojo clan. He goes missing. Everyone's looking for him. I can't remember his bloody name. But he has a fight with him, and he beats him up. I know the cutscene kicks in, and it didn't actually happen the way it did in the fight scene. But come on, I mean, seriously, this guy just plays baseball. It was a nice change of pace. Obviously, he's some journalist reporter or something like that. And again, you can see that I just wasn't interested in his story arc whatsoever. This game really, those two characters could have been left out, Haruka and Shinada, and you could have just had Saejima, Kiryu, and Akiyama. I mean, basically, when you're doing Haruka's quest anyway, it sort of overlaps with Akiyama's anyway, so they could have just done Akiyama and done away with all the Haruka crap, and that would have made it much better. I will say in this game's defense that the end, when they have that big old brawl outside Millennium Tower, and you can switch between the characters, where it gives you the option to choose who you want to fight as, and that was pretty amazing. That was pretty cool, and I did enjoy that. But I don't really have much more to say. Again, it's just full of side quests for the sake of side quests, like the taxi driving stuff. It makes you do a little bit of it to see if you will like it, and then it's up to you whether you do any more of it or not. But yeah, getting on. This is why it's so controversial. My least enjoyable, least favourite of the Yakuza series is Yakuza 2. Now, this is everybody's favourite, and I know I'm so far in the minority it's not even funny, but I just did not like Yakuza 2. I thought the bad guy, was it Ryo Golda or whatever his name is? Shows how much of a Yakuza fan I am. I can't even remember the characters' names. But the main villain, now he is one hell of a bad guy. They did a really good job of making you fear this guy, and you know, the anticipation to actually have to fight him at the end. But it's a load of old crap. The build up to fighting this guy at the end of the game, and the payoff is just dreadful. And one of my main gripes with it is comes to a point in the game where there's supposed to be all these bombs that have been planted all over Tokyo, and it's like, oh my god, you know, we've got to defuse these bombs. It all happens off screen. They defuse the bombs and that's it. It's all off screen and you don't have any involvement in it. The love interest in it is pretty cool. I think they shouldn't have written her out. They should have kept her in. I don't think she should have been the love interest continuously. I think it should have been an off again, on again thing, sort of like the sexual chemistry. She keeps coming back and then something happens and they go apart. Sega were very good with the Yakuza series of just writing all their characters out. Just as things were starting to get interesting, just as you started to like someone, they never come back. Other than the main cast and Date, nobody comes back, which is a bit of a shame, really. But yeah, Yakuza 2, least favourite. I think it was a lot of missed opportunities. I will say the controls are a lot better than Yakuza 1, but you would expect that. And then you've got all these twists and turns, and 1 minute this guy's your friend, then he's not your friend, but then he is your friend, really. Maybe I'm not being really concise. Maybe I should have written my thoughts down a little bit better. But like I said, this is just a ramble off the top of my head, just to give you guys an idea of what I'm thinking, if anybody cares. But yeah, that was my little ramble about the Yakuza series, from most enjoyable to least enjoyable. Personal opinion, bear in mind. And by the way, I'm not saying that they are bad games. They are good games. All of them are good. I wouldn't play them if they were like bad games. But this is just my opinion of what game I enjoyed the most to which game I enjoyed the least. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much.